2026. Craig no longer serves in any role within this ministry and is no longer authorized to speak or act on behalf of Rhema.
For years, Craig Hagin's name has been closely tied to influence, leadership, and a legacy that reached countless followers. But now, a development described by many as final and irreversible has sparked intense discussion, speculation, and strong emotions among supporters and critics alike. As details continue to emerge, questions are growing about what led to this moment and what it means for those who followed his journey. So, is this truly the end of a significant chapter? Or is there more to the story than meets the eye? Let's take a closer look. The fall of Craig Hagin. Rhema Bible Church has officially ended all professional and official ties with Craig Hagin after what it described as an incident that did not meet the standards expected of someone in spiritual leadership. The news was made public in a formal statement and quickly spread among members of the church and followers around the world, creating a wave of concern, questions, and quiet shock within the community. Craig Hagin previously served as the Chief Operating Officer of Rhema Bible Church. In this role, he carried major responsibilities connected to the day-to-day administration and leadership of the ministry. His position placed him close to key decisions and important operations within the church structure, making him a well-known figure among staff and members. However, in an official update shared on Facebook on June 7th, the church announced that his employment and all leadership roles had been terminated, with the decision taking effect from June 3, 2026. The statement made it clear that this was a complete separation. From that date forward, Craig Hagin no longer holds any position, title, or responsibility within Rhema Bible Church or any of its associated ministries. The church also emphasized that he is no longer permitted to speak, preach, represent, or act on behalf of the ministry in any form. This means he has no authority over church programs, teaching activities, administrative decisions, or public representation. All access he once had to internal systems, accounts, and organizational platforms was also fully removed as part of the transition. Church leaders described the situation as deeply painful and difficult, not only for the Hagin family, but also for members of the global Rhema community. They explained that such decisions are never taken lightly, especially when they involve someone who has served in a high position. At the same time, they stressed the importance of maintaining trust, protecting the reputation of the ministry, and ensuring accountability within leadership. While the separation is official, the church also made it clear that Craig is still regarded as part of their broader spiritual family. They expressed hope for healing, repentance, and restoration in his personal journey and asked for prayers rather than judgment. What exactly led to this decision has not been publicly explained. Church officials stated that the matter is still ongoing and chose not to share further details at this time. Even when media outlets such as Fox 23 reached out for clarification, no additional information was provided beyond the initial announcement. This development comes only a few months after Craig Hagin was placed on sabbatical due to a separate legal matter involving allegations of animal cruelty. However, the church has stated that the current decision is not connected to that earlier situation. For now, many questions remain unanswered, and members of the church community continue to wait for any further updates or clarity regarding the circumstances surrounding his dismissal. Why was Craig Hagin dismissed? Does his presence in the church leadership affect the image of the church? Let's delve deeper into the details of Craig Hagin's removal from Rhema Bible Church and the reasons behind it. Craig Hagin, removed from leadership. Rhema Bible Church officially announced the removal of Craig Hagin from every position of leadership, employment, and ministry service within the church. According to the church's statement, this decision was made after concerns were raised about conduct that did not match the moral expectations and leadership standards required of those serving in such important roles. The announcement has been described by church members as a difficult and emotional moment, especially because Craig previously held a senior position as Chief Operating Officer and played a major role in the church's day-to-day administration and organizational leadership. Church leadership explained that the decision did not come lightly. They stated that it followed the receipt of what they called credible information regarding a separate incident involving Craig's personal behavior. While the church did not publicly disclose full details of this matter, they emphasized that the information was serious enough to raise concerns about his continued role in ministry leadership. This new development came in addition to an already ongoing legal case connected to Craig and his wife. However, church officials have made it clear that Craig's removal from leadership was not based only on the ongoing legal case. They stressed that an additional and separate issue, which came to light more recently, played a major role in the final decision. According to their explanation, once church leadership received full details of this new concern, they acted quickly and decisively to remove him from all responsibilities in order to protect the values, reputation, and trust of the ministry community. Following the decision, Craig Hagin was immediately removed from all access to church systems, leadership platforms, and internal decision-making processes. He is no longer permitted to represent the church, speak on its behalf, or act in any official capacity connected to Rhema Bible Church. His roles, responsibilities, and influence within the organization have been fully suspended. Church leaders described the entire situation as deeply painful, not only for those directly involved, but also for the wider church family. They expressed sadness over how events have unfolded and encouraged members to remain prayerful. At the same time, they emphasized the importance of maintaining accountability and protecting the trust of their congregation, even when such decisions are emotionally difficult. They also shared that they continue to pray for Craig Hagin and his family, asking for healing, reflection, and possible restoration in the future. However, they were clear that their responsibility to uphold integrity within the ministry required immediate and firm action. As of now, the church has not released further details about the additional incident that contributed to his dismissal. Leaders explained that the matter remains sensitive and is still under consideration, and therefore cannot be publicly discussed at this time. Why has the church remained silent on the real reason for Craig Hagin's dismissal? Could the ongoing legal case really be the reason? Let's dig into the details of the arrest and ongoing legal case that opened the door to his sack. The hidden truth behind everything. The first visible break in what many people thought was a polished public image came through a legal case that suddenly began circulating online and drawing wide attention. Craig and Mia Hagin were arrested in Tulsa, Oklahoma, on allegations connected to animal cruelty. According to reports shared by authorities at the time, the condition of their home raised serious concern during inspection. Inside the property, officials described an environment that was unsafe and deeply unclean. There were strong, unpleasant smells throughout the house, rooms reportedly filled with waste, and multiple animals found living in distressing conditions. In some parts of the home, deceased animals were also said to have been discovered, adding to the seriousness of the situation and shocking many who later read about the case. As the investigation continued, formal charges were brought against both Craig and Mia. The matter moved through the legal system, where both individuals eventually entered no contest pleas. In the final outcomes, the charges did not remain at their original level. Instead, they were reduced in court. Craig's charges were adjusted down to misdemeanor-level counts, and Mia's charges were also modified during the legal resolution process. After the case became public, there were immediate consequences in their professional and public lives. Craig was removed from his position at Rhema Bible Church, a move that signaled a clear step back from his former role. Over time, his visibility within the ministry space faded. Mentions of him were gradually taken down from official channels, and his public involvement became far less noticeable. To many outside observers, it appeared as though the situation was being quietly contained, handled internally with the expectation that attention would eventually move on. At first glance, it seemed like a single unfortunate incident, a private failure that had spilled into public view and was now being managed behind the scenes. Many assumed the story would slowly lose momentum and disappear from public discussion. However, according to later public statements made by Mia Hagin and her sister, the legal case was not the full picture of what had happened. They suggested that what became known through the court process was only the surface-level event, the part that eventually could no longer remain hidden. Beneath that visible incident, they claimed, was a much longer and more complex history, one that stretched over many years, reportedly involving 2 decades of marriage marked by silence, emotional struggle, and internal pressure that was not previously shared with the public. These claims changed the way many people began to view the situation. What had first looked like a single isolated scandal started to be reinterpreted by some as the outcome of a deeper and longer unfolding personal story. And with that shift, the conversation around the entire case took on a very different tone. Why has this story gained so much attention? What does Craig Hagin represent? Let's dive into the details of the legacy that shape a global movement. The weight of a spiritual legacy. To fully grasp why this story has drawn so much attention, it is important to first understand the weight carried by the name at its center. This is not just about one family. It is about a spiritual legacy that has influenced millions of people across the world for decades. The Hagin family is far from an ordinary ministry household. In modern charismatic Christianity, it stands as one of the most recognized and influential dynasties. At the heart of this legacy is Kenneth E. Hagin, often called Dad Hagin by his followers. Born in 1917, he came from very modest beginnings, facing hardship early in life. Yet, through years of preaching, teaching, and personal conviction, he rose to become a global voice on faith, divine healing, positive confession, and the believer's authority in Christ. What made his impact even greater was how far his message traveled. His teachings were not confined to a single church or nation. They spread widely across continents and cultures. In countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Brazil, India, and the Philippines, his sermons and books became foundational resources for many pastors and churches. Even in Europe and North America, countless ministries drew inspiration from his messages. Through Rhema Bible Church and Rhema Bible Training College in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, his teachings were structured, taught, and multiplied, shaping generations of ministers. When Kenneth E. Hagin passed away in 2003, the responsibility of leadership did not fade. It moved to his son, Kenneth Hagin Jr., who carried the ministry forward and continued expanding Rhema's global reach. The name Hagin remained closely tied to teaching, leadership, and a growing international network of churches and Bible schools. In the next generation, Craig Hagin emerged as a visible figure within this continuing legacy.
Craig no longer serves in any role within this ministry and is no longer authorized to speak or act on behalf of Rhema.
Serving in ministry leadership and co-pastoral roles, he represented not only his immediate family, but also a spiritual brand that many believers had come to trust and respect over the years. To those watching from the outside, the Hagin name symbolized order, continuity, and strong spiritual influence passed carefully from one generation to the next. This is precisely why recent developments around the family have felt so shocking to many people. When a household long associated with faith, discipline, and spiritual authority becomes linked to personal or institutional controversy, it raises deeper questions. People do not only wonder what happened, they begin to ask how long such things remained unseen, and what it means for a legacy that once appeared so firm and untouchable. How did Craig Hagin's wife respond to the dismissal? What does she have to say about everything? Let's take a look at the details of Mia's voice and her sister's claims. Inside the cost of loyalty. On what should have been the 20th anniversary of her marriage, Mia Hagin chose a moment that would normally be filled with reflection, celebration, and memories. Instead, she stepped into the public space with a message that carried deep emotion and long-held weight. Her words did not sound like anger or blame. They sounded like someone who had grown tired after carrying too much for too long. There was a sense of quiet breaking inside her message, as if she was finally putting down a burden she had carried in silence for years. She confirmed that she and her husband were now separated and had begun the process of divorce. She described a marriage shaped by emotional strain, personal sacrifice, and private pain that few outside could see. According to her, there were many moments where staying required more strength than leaving ever would have. Yet, she stayed. She prayed through disappointment, held on through emotional distance, and continued to show loyalty even when she felt alone in the relationship. What stood out most was the tone of her message. It was not loud. It was not bitter. It was sorrowful. She expressed that she may not have always been what others would call the most desired, but she made it clear that she remained committed to her values, her faith, and her role in the marriage. She spoke of times when she felt unseen and emotionally overlooked, yet still chose patience, fasting, prayer, and support for her husband through his personal battles. For her, the idea of divorce was not a simple decision. It felt like a kind of emotional death, something she never planned for but now had to accept. Importantly, she did not turn her message into an attack. She did not reveal damaging details or seek to shame anyone involved. Instead, she asked for understanding and prayer, not only for herself, but also for Craig. Her words leaned more toward healing than conflict, even in the middle of separation. However, the conversation did not end there. Shortly after her statement, her sister added a new and more complex layer to the unfolding story. In her public comments, she suggested that behind the marriage were long-term struggles that had remained hidden from public view. These included allegations of infidelity, secrecy, and attempts to quietly manage or contain information that could become public. She claimed these challenges were not recent, but stretched far back into earlier years of the relationship. She also alleged that Mia had repeatedly sought help from church leaders and trusted family authorities, but felt her concerns were not properly addressed. Instead of intervention or meaningful support, she described a situation where silence was encouraged, appearances were protected, and reputation was prioritized. Most strikingly, she suggested that the push toward divorce was not only about marital breakdown, but also about concerns from leadership, especially Craig's father, Kenneth Hagin Jr., that ongoing exposure of these issues could harm the public image of the ministry. These remain allegations and personal claims made publicly, not confirmed conclusions. Still, they have kept attention on the story, because beneath everything, one difficult question lingers. What happens when private pain exists inside a world built on public faith, reputation, and ministry identity? What has Craig Hagin's case revealed about his personal life and the church? Was he able to get the needed support? Let's take a look at the power, silence, and ministry under a searchlight. Power, pain, and unequal protection. One of the most discussed details from the entire controversy is what allegedly happened after the arrests. According to the sister's account, Craig was released quickly on bail, arranged through family support. Mia, however, reportedly remained in jail for days before being released, eventually through financial help from her own children rather than institutional support. That contrast has become symbolic for many observers. It raises questions about priority, protection, and responsibility inside powerful ministry structures, especially in institutions that publicly teach faith, family care, and provision for believers in distress.
This is a deeply painful matter for our family, our church family, our Rhema family around the world.
After 2 decades of marriage, loyalty, and silence, Mia found herself facing separation, emotional loss, and financial instability. Meanwhile, according to these claims, she received no structured support from the institution she had been connected to through marriage and ministry life. For supporters of Rhema and its global influence, this moment is deeply painful to process. For critics, it is confirmation of long-standing concerns about how religious institutions handle internal crises. But beyond both perspectives, something larger is happening. A global ministry network that has shaped thousands of churches is now being examined through a very human lens. How does it treat people when things fall apart behind closed doors? Mia's voice, along with her sister's statements, has forced a broader reflection, not only about one family, but about systems that manage reputation, loyalty, silence, and accountability. And that is why this story continues to spread far beyond Oklahoma. Because, at its core, it is not just about allegations or court cases, or ministry leadership. It is about the tension between image and truth, between silence and voice,
between preservation of legacy and care for people who suffer within it.
For Mia, the story is personal. 20 years of love, endurance, and pain, now stepping into the public eye, whether she intended it or not. For Craig, it is a moment of public reckoning that will demand clarity, accountability, and response beyond institutional silence. For Kenneth Hagin Jr. and Rhema leadership, it is a defining leadership test, one that will reveal whether the principles preached for decades apply equally when the crisis is internal rather than external. And for the global Christian community, it is a reminder that no ministry, no matter how influential, is beyond the need for truth, humility, and responsible care for those within its walls. Because in the end, legacies are not only measured by what is built in public, they are also measured by how people are treated in private, when no one is supposed to be watching. So, what do you think about Craig Hagin's dismissal from the church? Do you really think his presence has any negative effects on the church? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.